I come from Boston. I lived in Boston. I know Whitey Bulger. I also know about him. I also know that he had a brother who was Congress. He was in Congress, sitting in Congress. I think he stepped down. I think because of a lot of stuff that Whitey did. Um, Boston is right like on the borderline of Somerville, and he was known in Somerville. That was the Irish crew. He was known as the Winter Hill Gang. Apparently, I mean, this is well documented on TV. He tried to move in East Boston. Uh, and of course, they were Irish. And somehow he wanted to move in with the Italians, you know. I met four guys, old timers. Three of them died in prison while I was there. One of them, I was happy and I was honored to shake his hand. They released him because they reversed it. Everything came out in the open. An officer was involved in covering up, you know what I mean, all these murders and hits and stuff like that. And at the same time, he was running things on the street. He was also telling on people.
This is Whitey you're talking about?
Yeah, Whitey. Yeah, Whitey wanted power, so that's the way he did it. He used the officers, the police, the corruption, in order to remove these people. I even have friends still in prison that are innocent because of Whitey Bulger. He just put fingers on people, even people that didn't do nothing. So, you know, allegedly, of course, what the story is that he ended up shooting some people. I don't want to get into names specific, but he shot some people and pinned the murder on these four guys. I know there's a big lawsuit in the federal cases. Their family won millions of dollars for this corruption with the police and the government, and of course Whitey Bulger behind it. What I think about Whitey, I think he's a snitch. He's a piece of crap. You know, I also can call him worse names, but I'll stop right there. I got no respect for him. I know they made a movie on him, The Black Mass. I didn't watch it. I'm not gonna spend $30 on a DVD on a dude snitching, for real. I knew eventually that he was gonna fall, and I knew eventually that if he goes to the system, yeah, they're gonna get to him. When you're playing at that high level, you just don't get away with nothing. You know, there's a rule in prison. You know what I mean? And that's the way it is. But yeah, talking about Somerville, I went to Somerville a few times. And I know this is in the 60s. I remember that black and Hispanics could not walk in that territory. And if you got caught walking in that territory, because Boston was a very, very racial, tense place back in the 60s and 70s and early part of the 80s. When I used to walk there, I always thought about Whitey and his crew, if they're gonna come on and attack me. But I always had that back in mind because his name was well spoken of in that area. Everybody knows who he is. I know he ran with a crew. I know people who knows them. I've been around and met quite a bit of people during my on the streets and in the joint. But like I said, I'm still. There's only one guy that I really think about. I spent some time with him down in the pen, down in Florida, in a federal prison, and I think he might even have a Facebook thing talking about the situation, about his case, because he's been trying to reverse it, and the government just don't want to do it, even though they know that he didn't commit the murder.
But Whitey said that he did.
Yeah, Whitey said that he did it, and Whitey put the finger on a lot of people, and just pretty much so that he can get over and walk on the street and try to control stuff. You know, I know that he was out in Florida, I think California, and I guess he got into a domestic issue with because it came out in the news, with his girlfriend. His girlfriend turned him in. That's why, and his girlfriend went to jail too, because I guess aiding and abetting, assisting conspiracy. You know, knowing the fact what he did, knowing that the law wanted he's a fugitive, hiding him. So she went down with him too. I guess she thought she was gonna get rid of him. She went to jail too for snitching.
Let's talk about back in the 60s and the 70s. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about Whitey Bulger from back then?
Well, before the story came out, before the truth came out, after they released my friend, he's the only one out of four of them that Whitey put his finger on the murder. Actually, it came out to light that he did the murder. He had it done. And so these guys apparently, according, it's on documents, so I'm not saying nothing that is, they had, or they were involved in some high-ranking whatever, you know, whatever they were doing, and Whitey wanted that position. He wanted to be there. He wanted to be the top dog of, you know, Massachusetts to run it. So apparently he did these murders, or arranged it to happen, and it took these four off of power and put them in prison. Even though that the authority had a hot on these guys, okay, they turned their head this way knowing that Whitey did it, and it wasn't them, but still put them in prison. So they falsified documents. I believe it was Conley, Officer Conley, if I remember.
How did people in prison view Whitey Bulger?
Same way as I feel. They don't like snitches. Really, people don't even want to talk about it. You know, you mention the name and people just get upset. You know, why are you talking about him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you ruined my day. I never liked him. Really, personally, I never liked him. And it's more because he was a racist anyways. See what I'm saying? Like I said, you had South Boston, and you had Somerville, you had Boston, and there was a street, Dorchester Ave. And at one side, you cannot cross over there because that's where the Irish people are at. They live over there. They didn't want the Hispanics or black over there. I know there was a case that I remember, and it was sad. A black woman, I think with 2 kids, moved in to projects in South Boston. And they sent her a letter telling she has to move. And she didn't move. So they ended up burning her apartment down. If I remember, I think she died. I think she died in the fire. But it was like that. It was extremely racial in Massachusetts. I mean, I could walk down the street, and one time I got jumped by 13 dudes, white, simply because I was Puerto Rican and I happened to be out over after 12 o'clock at night. I survived that. I got hit with a pipe. I got punched in the face. Somebody ended up calling the police. And, you know, I didn't even have the time to pull out my knife because it happened so quick. But that's how it was. Back in my days in the 60s and 70s, you had to be very careful where you walk at. Getting back to him, I say him because I really don't like to mention his name. But what I know of, I mean, I met them. I met them in person, certain occasions.
You met Whitey Bulger?
Yeah, I didn't speak with him, but you know what I mean? He was in the same area that I was in because I was talking to somebody I knew. But I looked at him and I knew who he was, based on pictures and stuff like that. But this is before anybody knew that he was doing this.
What was his persona like? Like, what do you remember about seeing him?
He had that gangster mentality. He had that, you know, that mobster mentality. You know, he talked, when he talked, he barked commands pretty much. You know, he said things and it was just done. I've never said hi to say what's happening to him in person, no, and shook his hand, no. But he was in the same area that I was in, that I can just look over and see who he was, and I know who he was, and I know his crew. You know, they were out there in the media. You know what I mean? They were spoken a lot. It was like a household name back then. A lot of people liked the Whitey because, you know, as the story goes, he helped his neighborhood. You know, he helped the people that were living poor. I mean, this is what I understand. It was just the stories that I heard. I guess everybody has a dark side and a good side to them. You know what I mean? So, but what happened to him? You know, there's a saying, what comes around goes around. You know, I understand that he ended up dying. It's on Google. I read it. And, you know, he got what he deserved. I mean, pretty much.
Danny, what are your thoughts, you know, hearing that Whitey was killed in prison?
I look at it this way. You know, I've been in prison for a very long time. Even though I'm out here free, or at least I'm supposed to be free. I'm still kind of like back and forth mentally. But I always live by a rule, and I apply that rule out here. I don't deal with snitches. I don't like snitches, and they deserve nothing more than the worst that they can get what they deserve. That's the best way I can put it. Trying to, mild it down a little bit, because I don't want to sound cruel, and I don't want the viewers to get a different, what I mean? Why is Danny talking like that, There are certain things that I still live by. You see what I'm saying? I learned how to be humble. I learned to open up the door more to people, you know what I'm saying? I learned to learn to have friends, because I didn't know how to, I didn't know that process. So I don't want the viewers to get a misconception of me, what I'm saying. However, he deserved what he got. I mean, if he did people wrong and put people away and disrupted family lives. In fact, the case with the old man I was telling you, the four of them, their family sued the government and Whitey Bulger, and they got millions of dollars. And their family got paid only because of the mental anguish and stress that Whitey put them through. Because they did like 20-something years before they got out, man. All that time in prison, knowing that they were innocent. I mean, you just don't do that. Nobody should do that. You don't put an innocent man just because. It's like if I kill somebody, and then I said, well, you did it, and you did it. You see what I'm saying? First of all, I'm wrong for even saying that. Saying who did it, because I shouldn't be doing that. I crossed line. And then pointing it at somebody who never committed the murder. Like I said, I still have friends, I think like 2 of them that I know personally, who are from that area, okay? And they've been fighting their case now. I think one of them got at least 30 years in, and he's still fighting. In fact, he was really close of getting something done. And he's on Facebook. I believe he's got a thing on Facebook. I wish I can say his name, but I don't have permission to do that, so I can't go there. But I can talk about the issue related, how it's related to this guy, because this guy never committed that murder. It is sad. So what I feel about Whitey, hey, he got what he deserved, He put a lot of people through a lot of stuff unnecessary simply because of greed and power.
So you're not surprised to hear that what happened?
No, I knew that was coming. It was just a matter of time. They're going to send him to a wrong joint, or he's going to be in a wrong place at the wrong time. Well, wrong place at the right time for that to happen. You mentioned one thing, that he was going from institution to institution. That sounds like he was on diesel therapy. There's a possibility, because they did diesel therapy with me. When they don't like you, you have any assault on staff, like I had assault on staff. I filed lawsuits against staff, the institution, civil rights issues. They don't like that. Jailhouse lawyer, they call them. They ship you all over. I mean, you can be for a whole year, 3 years, just bouncing to place.
But it doesn't have to just be assault. It doesn't have to just be the lawsuits. It could be because maybe they were trying to protect them.
And that's another thing too. It could be that they were trying to protect them. It could be. If that was the case, it's a possibility that happens. Usually, he's high figure. He's a high figure individual because he's got a lot of media, and his case is really serious. He's high figure. So, of course, I can see why they're jumping him from place to place. Protection, maybe it was diesel therapy. But no, it was no surprise to me. I knew eventually. It's funny because somebody says, hey, Danny, did you see the movie Black Mass? I ain't gonna watch that movie. What are you, crazy? Think I got time to watch a snitcher on TV?
I asked you if you saw that.
Oh yeah, you did. No, but I've had many people ask me about that movie because they know I'm from that area, and so they assume that and they assume I do. I know about him. I know who he is. I've been in the same area that he has been, because I'm talking to other people that I've known from the past. But personally, talking with him, no. And I'm glad now I can say, well, after all the story came out, I'm glad I never spoke to the man. But I know who he is. I know his story very well.
You served time in West Virginia,
yes,
in the federal system. Mm-hmm. Is there anything special about West Virginia? Is it violent? Is there anything? Because he was killed at a place called Hazleton, USP.
Yeah.
What do you know about this prison?
First of all, if he was placed there, I find it strange that he would go to a USP like that, because USP is United States Penitentiary. It's the highest level in the federal system. That's where all the murder. Hazleton has a reputation for murder. It has. Hazleton, Victorville, I've been there. Coleman USP1, I've been there. They have some serious places that I don't even want to go back there because it's just the state of mind. You're always going to be on alert. You don't know what jumps off. There can be a hit on one guy. Everybody else in the yard knows except for that one person because nobody dares to tell them. Because if they do, they die too. And believe me, people know. People know. You can't hide nothing in the system. Everybody knows everything about you. Yeah, Hazleton is a real tough joint. They got a medium next to it too. It's brand new. And that's a tough joint because why? It follows the reputation of Hazleton, USP. They got USP mediums, they got low, then they got camp. I never made a camp because when you got a violent background, you can't go to a camp. But the lower you go, the more snitches you have. And because of his case too, I couldn't see him going to a camp. They do have mediums, protected custody mediums. What they're doing now, the government is mixing up population. So they probably try to put him out in USP, walk in the yard, and try, maybe there's other people that's snitching there. I don't know. But like I said, what Whitey did, he did it at the highest level. So, I mean, you can't sleep on that.
Danny, there's reports that they gouged his eyes out. They hit him with a lock and a sock. He was jumped by 3 people. And supposedly they cut his tongue out as well, or attempted to. Damn. You know, what kind of a message do you think they're trying to send doing something like that?
I can't comment on that. I just leave it like that alone. You know what I mean?
My perception of the feds is, you know, when people get a federal charge, like let's say drugs, for example, they're going to sentence you to hundreds and hundreds of months. And the only thing that you can do at that point is cooperate. In fact, they've got a specific plea deal. It's called like a 2K something plea deal.
Oh yeah. That's when individual plays ball with the government, right. And what they do is they file a motion to reduce his time for telling. But
that's my perception of the feds is that most everybody in the feds, especially with drug charges, is snitching. Right. Is that not the case?
I would say probably the percentage of it is probably. It's up there, but I wouldn't give it so much like that. I would say probably a little bit more than half, you know, because you got good guys up there doing time for drugs who never did, you know, go like that. They don't go out like that. They carry their weight and they do their time, you know, but there are people also who's been convicted innocent for drug charges. It's been set up by the police, been planted on them. Maybe because they want somebody and he ain't playing ball. So when the person don't play ball, so when they take that other dude down through somebody else, they take him down for not telling. So, you know what I mean? It's a very touchy situation. The subject is anyways.
Well, I bring that up to you because, you know, I really want to talk about how snitches are viewed in federal prison.
You know, where I was at, and I won't mention it, but where I was at, where I was just released from, that yard had a lot of snitches in it, and people knew. And what that made me do was hate the entire population. So I didn't deal with nobody. I was an outsider, outcast. So a lot of people didn't like me because I just didn't talk to them. Me doing legal work, people will come to me, and I said, before I do any business with you, I want to look at your paperwork. Because if I go to his shot caller, you know, shot caller may say, yeah, he's clean, but I'm not taking his word. I want to see it. So if I'm going to help you with your case, and it's a confidential, because everything you talk about is confidential with your case. Somebody asks me, I'll tell them, go ask. Once you go ask the man you want to know about. Now, if a shot caller comes and tells me, did you look at is he good? I'll tell him, sure, he's good, because he runs with that car. But that's only with permission. I do not cross that line because I'm not in that car.
I want you to elaborate on 2 things real quick. You mentioned shot callers. I mean, obviously we're talking about like the leaders, the alpha males, right. your top dogs in gangs. You know, can you explain to me a little more about a shot caller?
Yeah, well, the thing is this, It doesn't necessarily, a shot caller doesn't necessarily have to be a gang member. Because what happens is this. The government, the way they do it, they call it a car. And because they call it a car, they label you automatically as a gang.
And what is
a car? Is the people you belong with. It's either your neighborhood, white, black, Puerto Rican, Chinese, you know what I'm saying? Everybody sticks with their own. Of course, they associate with one another, you know what I mean, to an extent. But that's just the way it goes. If you come from Boston, well, you're in a Boston car. Boston car may run with New York car. They may run with Connecticut too. They normally do. They unite for more power. So they got tables that belongs to different cars. You can't sit at another table. It belongs to somebody else because you're gonna run into some problems, real big problems. And you can't sit down anyways because somebody's gonna tell you to get the F up. That's, you know, get the F up. You don't belong here. Who you run with? That's the first thing they say. So that's a car when we're talking about. So necessarily doesn't mean that you have to be in a gang to be in a car. You know what I mean? They got the neutral car. Neutral car, guys that don't run with nobody. Then they got a Christian car for Christian people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it goes even church. So when you come up, the first thing they say, which car you belong with, who you run with, when you come in through booking. And you have to tell them because sometimes certain guys can't walk that yard, you know? A lot of people, you know, cannot walk the yard because, like, for example, Texas and California. Texas cannot walk in California yard. And if they do, they'll probably strip him in a room, see and look at his tattoos to see if he's represented. And then, on top of that, if he's there, then he falls under them. See what I'm saying? So he's not free to do anything. There's no such thing. California, there's no such thing as independent cars. You're running with somebody.
And obviously, Whitey Bulger, he was in the wrong car.
Yeah. It's not. I don't think it's so much about the car. I just think about its action. I don't think he should have. Technically, he couldn't walk that yard. That's as best as I can say it. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He couldn't walk that yard. He couldn't walk in a lot of yards. Maybe at a medium, where there's a PC joint, where there's a lot of snitching going on, or a camp. But because he's facing so much time, he can't walk in a camp. Because in the camp, I would say 75 to 80, maybe 90% of snitches. I wouldn't want to go to a camp anyways. I don't even like a medium. I really don't. I like high security because there's less chances of snitches walking that yard. Once they're found, they're eliminated. That's just the way it is, you know. Now, I've been away from the system some time, so things changes. So I really don't know. I know that the government has been trying to break down the USPs. They've been trying to send these type of people in there. They did it in mediums, certain mediums. They went to the cars, okay, and they called them and said, listen, we have 75 snitches and rapists in the shoe. We can't let them out unless you agree with it. You agree with it, this is what we'll do. We'll let you watch sports till 11 o'clock on special occasions. We do this, we do that. But if you put your hands on them, I'm locking all of yous up. Now, certain yards, they let them out. They blow them up anyways. Blow them in means they mess them up. Okay, SOS on site, smash on site. And they lock them up anyways. But they'll never come back again. They'll wait till the whole yard changes again, because it does. The yard changes. People are coming and going just about every day. And they'll wait and do it again. They're trying to change the yards. I'll make an example. I just walked in Cumberland the first time. The first thing they asked me, I said, listen, are you this? I said, no. I said, well, are you this? I said, no. Who you run with then? I said, I'm independent, neutral. He said, hold on a second. It's not what the record says. I said, well, whoever did that record, you know what I mean, labeled me as that I'm running with here. It's not. Perhaps it's because I do legal work. So I'm around a lot of people. And maybe that's how they label me. But, you know.
They labeled you as a gang member.
Exactly. And so he said, okay, cool. So I went to Pop. 2 weeks later, something jumps off with the Mexicans over the TV. The first person they came was me. I was the first individual they cuffed out of the unit, and they said to me, they said my name. I said, yeah, that's me. He says, who you run with? Are you this? I said, no. He says, what else? He said, are you Puerto Rican? I says, yeah. He says, cuff up. And I was the first one in there. Now I did 2 months in the SHU, and they released me because I wasn't even involved. Because the same people who got beat up, the Mexican, their leaders were snitching. And they left them in the yard. And it happened again. And the third time, people went up to them and said, listen, why, we already know they're snitching. Why are you locking up dudes that have nothing to do with it? So they ended up taking them two out of there for snitching. Yeah, the first and the second one was snitching. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody to do that and then go in the system. I don't care where you're at. I don't care if it's a county jail, because county jail, you can get at, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's a county, state, federal, local, whatever it is. I don't recommend anybody to say anything about anybody. Just mind your effing business and just keep stepping, for real. I mean, you know, if they open their mouth, then they what you're gonna say? They believe me, they're opening up the doors for a lot of shit. Getting back to this Bulger guy, if that's what happened to him, according to the report in Google, then, you know, he deserved what he got, you know. You don't put innocent people away, you know what I'm saying? And you know something? There's not a day that goes by that I think about my friend in Florida, you know what I mean? I watched him. I seen his face, I seen his eyes, I seen the intensity in him. You know, I see the pain that they kept him away from his kids and his family. I know that he had a sick mother, I think, or sick father. I know one of his parents is very sick and was like at that point where, you know, they may pass away, and he couldn't do nothing because he's hundreds of thousands of miles away down in Florida when he's up from the north. It's just sad. It's sad. And then knowing who's the one that did it, and then after all the stories come out, they still don't want to really investigate these old cases.
Do you think that there was a green light on Whitey Bulger?
I can only say I don't know. Like I said, I'm out of the picture. I don't know what's really going on with him personally and with these other. I just know the fact that I was around people that Whitey put him in jail with, you know what I'm saying? And they were innocent. I can speak on that. But technically, if somebody does talk, it's a possibility that something was passed along in that line. And then sometimes it's not. I mean, I've known people, well, I don't know people, but I was pointed out, you know, see that guy right there? He did this, he did that, he did this, and he talked. And it was some serious things that he did, and he walks the yard. So like I said, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Depending what level and who you're doing it to. The government has a bad habit of labeling people and putting people's status that are really not.
But he definitely had that status.
Oh yeah, he definitely had, Whitey had that status. He had that status because he made it known. That, I mean, it's on news, documents, and everything about his life. Even the movie that they made, The Black Mass. Yeah, he had that status. He had that, and he wanted it. He wanted it bad to a point that he did what he did.
Well, what do you think about the person who did this? Mm-hmm. Without even really talking about who they're saying, they've made some speculations of a guy that they said was the guy that did this to Whitey. Do you think he gets a lot of reputation for this? Anybody
that would do something like that at that level, of course they'd be recognized. Even if he wasn't at that level, whoever takes it, you know, does something like that. I know one time in the joint, I had to pick up a hit for a friend he had position, he was powerful. And out of that, I got recognized by the entire club. Notice how I say club, and I'll leave it like that. And they gave me an option if I wanted to be, you know, one of them, and I told them no. You know, but the respect-wise, it was like, whew, Now, whether these guys did or not, I don't know. You know, the system has a habit of blaming people that sometimes didn't do nothing. For example, I made a point with that issue with the Mexicans and the TV. I got locked up and I really didn't know what was behind it, but because I was Spanish, it was the Puerto Ricans and the Mexicans beefing, I was the first one they came and got, because I'm Puerto Rican. The basic about Bulger, he's a snitch, and if that's what happened to him, then he deserved it, because I know sooner or later he was going to get it. It's a fact that he snitched. I mean, that's well documented, you know what I mean? Usually, technically, that's what snitches get, you know? But like today's system, it's really hard to tell, because, man, I've been to places where they walk, and they walk like King Kong there.